Welcome to part 2 of chapter 4. In this part, we'll talk about strategic planning. The relationship here between strategic planning and project integration management is as follows. You see, one important area of integration is making sure that your project as a whole is well aligned with an organizational strategy. Okay? If your project is not well aligned with the overall plan or strategy of your organization, then there is a big chance that your project will not be even approved in the first place, because there is just not much business or strategic justification for the project. But before talking about the links between projects and organizational strategy, we'll try to explain what a strategy is. I would say that a strategy is a very high-level plan that an organization adopts to compete with other organizations in the same industry. This is how business works. No matter what kind of idea you come up with, no matter what kind of industry you enter, there will be fierce competition for customers, for profits in that industry. So you as a company, you need to compete as well, because if you don't compete, then other companies will steal your profits, steal your competitors. Now, competing involves creating a strategy. A strategy is, once again, a high-level idea on how you're going to compete. For example, according to Michael Porter, there are two ways in which businesses compete. One is called cost leadership, by trying to lower their costs, and the other one is called differentiation. So differentiation, in a way, is like the opposite strategy of cost leadership. So differentiation means you're not paying as much attention to your cost structure. In fact, you may even command a premium price. But the number one goal that you're trying to achieve as a company is to offer something different, something unique to your customers, something that people are willing to pay extra money for. So those are the two main categories. So an example of a cost leadership would be, let's say, Walmart, right? Walmart is all about offering consumer goods at low prices. An example of differentiation would be something like Harley Davidson. Now, Harley Davidson offers those unique, cool, stylish motorcycles that are quite expensive, especially in comparison to some of the Japanese brands. But nevertheless, people like them because they're cool, because of the way they look, the way they sound, and they're willing to pay a lot of money. I think for the price of one Harley Davidson, you can probably buy 2 or 3 Japanese bikes that arguably are of similar or better quality, but they're just not as cool. They don't have as much uniqueness to them. So strategy means how you're planning to compete. Strategies are created as a result of the so-called strategic planning process. It's a process that involves determining long-term objectives, predicting future trends, and projecting the need for new products and services. Organizations often formulate strategies after performing the so-called SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis involves analyzing strengths, weaknesses as an organization, and also looking on the outside of the organizational boundaries. So strengths and weaknesses, it's something that is internal to the organization, while opportunities and threats is something that's happening in the outside environment. So once you do this analysis, you brainstorm about your weaknesses as an organization, also about your strength, and then you think about threats, meaning negative forces in the external environment, for example, lots of competition, or opportunities. Let's say industry continues to grow. Then you can come up with a strategy. How you come up with it? Well, that's where the art of strategy comes in. There's no formula that helps you to somehow convert all those strengths, weaknesses into strategies. But typically, strategy is formulated in a way where you leverage your leverage your strength to address your weaknesses, or you leverage your strength to pursue opportunities, or you leverage your strength to neutralize or address certain threats in the environment. So what's the relationship between an organizational strategy and project? Well, you see, as a part of strategic planning, organizations also identify and select potential projects that would help them materialize the strategy. I mean, it's good to say that we're competing on cost, but how exactly do we go about competing on cost? For example, you can initiate a project of, reducing electricity consumption, or you will initiate a project involving reducing manual labor in your assembly plant, right? So those specific projects will help you bring your strategy into fruition, meaning to materialize it, right? To make it work, okay? And then, once those projects are selected, so out of all those projects that can be initiated to support cost leadership, the organization will select the ones that seem to be the best fit, the most promising ones, giving the organizational strategy, and then they will actually issue a project charter and get the project started. So that's the relationship between projects and the overall strategy of an organization. Now, nowadays, IT department, especially large IT departments, they also formulate their IT strategy plans, meaning there is a strategic plan for the entire organization, and then IT departments will formulate a strategic plan for their own organization. The key word here is alignment. Your information technology strategy needs to be aligned or suitable for your overall organizational strategy. For example, if your overall organizational strategy is to compete based on cost, then you cannot have a mission for your IT department that says something like, our mission is to offer cutting edge technology to all employees within the organization, because offering cutting edge technologies, being innovative, involves spending extra money. So most likely your overall department strategy would be something like, you know, going open source, using open source to minimize costs, something that would be aligned with this overall strategy of organizational leadership. So then all those things kind of cascade down. So you formulate a strategy, the IT strategy that is aligned with the organizational strategy, and then that's translated into project planning, resource allocation, and business area analysis, meaning determining the key business area where you will initiate certain projects within the IT department. Now let's talk more about selecting projects. So how do you select projects so that they help you accomplish your organizational strategy or mission? So there are many methods for selecting projects. Sometimes you're just focusing on broad organizational needs, meaning does this project look like it's something that's absolutely necessary for us as an organization? Or categorizing information technology projects, some categories, if your project falls into certain categories that just cannot be avoided, let's say something related to government or legislature compliance, then the project will be selected. Sometimes financial modeling is done. I think this is the preferred method for a lot of senior executives, but because senior executives, they are hired to make money for shareholders, as they say, to maximize shareholder returns. So they are evaluated based on numbers, based on financial performance. So that's why they want to use the same kind of measurement mechanism to everything else within the company. So they would also use financial models to evaluate and select projects to determine which projects will be suitable for implementing the overall organizational strategy. Sometimes you can use a weighted scoring model. It's a combination of qualitative and quantitative factors, where qualitative factors are scored, based on a particular scale. Let's say Likert scale from 1 to 5. Strongly agree to strongly disagree, and then each qualitative factor also has a weight. So the score that you get is adjusted by its weight. And then implementing a balanced scorecard approach. This is once again, this is a weighted scoring model. So what I would say is that weighted scoring models and balanced scorecard models, they're like a hybrid approach, because those financial models, they have come under a lot of fire recently, because some of the things in relation to information technology, they're just so hard to quantify. So that's why you need to use both qualitative and quantitative considerations together, because quantitative or financial indicators themselves can be quite useless or at least misleading. So focusing on broad organizational needs. Oftentimes it's very strong to provide objective, I would say, justification for many IT projects, where you clearly see dollar return. But sometimes everyone agrees that they have a very high value. As the saying goes, it is better to measure gold roughly than to count pennies precisely. Some projects, they're just gold. I mean, you're not sure how much you'll get in return, but it just looks so promising. For example, using online education to double the size of the student body at Murray State University by attracting students from China and India. I mean, you don't know whether you're going to be successful with this project or not, but it looks like gold, because if you are successful, I mean, you can attract thousands and thousands of students from Asia, right? So that would be a very lucrative opportunity, as opposed to initiating a project that says, oh, let's replace all of our air conditioning filters and we're going to save 1% of energy consumption. I mean, even if you're successful with this project, the return will be 1% of your electrical bill, which is something, but not that impressive, right? So sometimes, projects just, look very persuasive. Some important considerations when deciding whether a project should be started. Is there a need? Is there a very strong need for the project? Are there funds available? Most importantly, is there a strong will to make the project succeed? Is there somebody very powerful within the organization who is fully committed to this project, is willing to provide all kinds of support, all kinds of resources allocated to this project, and overall push this project through? That's one of the most important success factors. Or sometimes projects are categorized. For example, it can be a problem that has to be addressed now. If you don't address this problem, the company can go out of business. or it can be a very lucrative opportunity, or a directive, meaning a requirement or mandate from the government, and you have to comply with this directive, or otherwise the government will shut you down. So something that is not an option. Some organizations look at how long it will take to complete a particular project. For example, some organizations they don't think long term. That frequently happens in emerging turbulent economies. So the only thing they're just trying to do something that will pay off in the short run. As my boss used to say, to get that low hanging fruit, right? If it's something that's long term, involving several years, then they don't like it because they're not that sure about the future. So they only do things or projects that matter now. And then the overall priority of the project. So there can be like something that is very urgent, something that has to be done, something that has been avoided for a long time, and now it's time to do it. Or again, the entire organization can go out of business. So sometimes, oftentimes there are those qualitative, very high-level qualitative considerations when deciding whether a particular project should be selected, and deciding whether a particular project fits the overall organizational strategy. So that concludes part 2 of chapter 4. Thank you for watching.